Woohoo! Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about rounding and techniques of rounding, especially when it comes to applications or word problems. I've invited my friend Blue Dinosaur, who is very round, to come and help me out. And I've written up a lot of notes, some ideas behind why we round and how to round. And so I'd like to start with, why do we round? Why round at all? This is a fair question, especially when you consider all the steps required to round after you've already finished the main part of the problem. So in other words, you've already done a whole math problem, you've got an answer, and now you're going to have to do another math problem just to figure out how to format the answer in a way that the book is asking for. And the idea behind this is that we want to round to make things make more sense in context. We round all the time in casual conversation to be more easily understood. If someone asks your age, you probably wouldn't say that you're 20 and 11/12ths or 20.91666666, etc. years old. You'd probably say that you're almost 21 or you'll be 21 next month. Although it's true that 20 and 11/12ths is equal to 20.91666666, etc., it's far easier to simply round up to 21, and it makes the other person feel more comfortable, and it's easier to understand for a lot of folks. The key here, math can be very powerful when solving problems, but it's just as important to help the reader interpret the results of those problems. So it's not enough to just get an answer. You need to make sure that the answer fits the context of the question. In order to talk about rounding, we're going to have to work with word problems. And so I've chosen a fairly straightforward formula. It's not too complicated. It's called the annual simple interest formula. And basically it says that the interest that is earned on a loan is the principal, that's the money you start with, so that's the money you start with is the principal, the annual interest rate times the annual interest rate in decimal form times the number of years. And it can be written as I for interest equals P, principal, times R, the interest rate, times T. So that's the formula we're going to be using. We're also going to be using the standard mathematical rule for rounding. And so that rule hopefully is one that you're familiar with, but if not, then here it is. Basically, you find the decimal place you'd like to round to, and then look at the digit immediately to the right. So that's that side. So you want to go there, that way. You want to go to the right, and if that next digit is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then you round down. If the next digit is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then you round up. So what does that even mean? Let's take a look at a very simple example. I've got a number, 101.384. This is the actual exact answer. And I would like to round. And it says, let's round this to the nearest tenth. So here's the tenth, or the tenths place. So what I want to look at, and let me grab this color, I want to look at the number directly to the right, which is that 8. 8 means to round up, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you round up. And so I'm going to say the 101.384 is going to round, and notice I used the wiggly equals, meaning approximately equal. That means I'm changing the number. This is the exact answer right here. And then we're going to get a rounded answer, so an approximation. And this is going to be 101 point, and we're looking at the 3. And because of the 8 next to it, we're going to say, you know, it's closer to 4 than 3, so we're going to round to 101.4. And this is the rounded answer. And sometimes this is the approximate answer. It just depends on the setting, how you want to refer to it. Okay, so in this case, we would round to 101.4. What if I asked you to round 101.384 to the nearest hundredth? Let's look again. If we want to round to the nearest hundredth, the hundredths are actually where the 8 is. Personally, I find this very hard to say without spitting hundredths, but it can be done. And so here, we're going to look to the 4 to decide how we're going to round. So we're going to go 1 to the right, and I look, it's 8, 4, and 4 is one of these. So if that next digit is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then round down. So 4, we're going to round down. And by down, it means basically we're going to do something called truncating. We're just going to take off the extra. So we're not actually going to go down to 7. We're just going to say 101.384 is approximately equal to 101.38. Notice that in rounding down, I left it at 8, and I just took off the 4. So I don't actually go all the way down to 7. But we're basically saying we're closer to 8 than 9, so let's write it as 8. Again, both of these answers, both of these rounded or approximate answers are not exact. They're actually a little bit wrong, but it's going to make it easier for us to use the number. Okay, so let's go to the next page. Woohoo! Yay! Next page time. So now we're going to start this problem. Are you ready? Blue dinosaur. Oh, this is very exciting. I know, I'm very excited. So I have $100 I'd like to invest at 2.5 annual simple interest. How long will it take me to earn $5 in interest? So I'll remind you the formula is I equals P times R times T, and some of these letters are uppercase and some of them are lowercase. We're not going to worry about why they are, but I'm going to try to be careful. I and P are both written as uppercase, and R and T are both written as lowercase. So I'm going to be careful about that. That's always a good plan in math, to make sure you're careful about your uppercase letters and your lowercase letters, because with only 26 letters, we run out of letters really fast. So we have to use both upper and lowercase. So I've got $100, and that's going to be my principal. And then I've got R. Now R is 2.5%, but whenever we're working with percentages, we always try to write them as decimals. So my percentage is going to be 0.025 as a decimal. Remember, you take that decimal point in the percentage and you move it 2 spots to the left. So that's how we ended up with 0.025. Now it says how long, so we do not know what T is going to equal, but we do know that the interest I want to earn is $5, right? So let's put this all together. If I take all of this together, I end up with I equals PRT, so 5 equals 100 times 0.025 times T. So that's my formula. I've got an equation. I've got a variable. I can solve for the variable. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 100 times the 0.025. Turns out that's going to be 2.5. So I have 2.5t. And then the next step, because I've got 2.5 next to t, these are multiplied. So to undo this, I'm going to divide both sides by 2.5. So 5 over 2.5 and 2.5t all over 2.5. 5 over 2.5 is 2. 2.5 cancels, and so I get t equals 2. So the answer is 2 years. Woo! It's nice. Isn't that lovely? I love it when answers are nice and round. So this will take 2 years. And how did I know it was 2 years? Well, I'll remind you. First off, I know the formula pretty well, but also t is given in the number of years. It agrees with the fact that this is an annual interest rate. So annual means every year. Okay, so that's lovely. We got a lovely, lovely answer. Do we always get a lovely, lovely answer? The answer is no. Frequently in math, we're going to get an answer that's a lot more complicated. Sorry about that, Blue Dinosaur. So let's take a look at a very similar problem, but now, again, I have $100. I'd like to invest at 2.5% annual simple interest. So we know it's this formula because it's annual simple interest. I've got $100, so my P is $100. My interest rate is still 2.5%, so that's going to give me 0.025. How long? So I don't know how long T is. I don't know T. Will it take me to earn $5.80? Now that's where things are going to get exciting, because 580 is not as simple as just 5. And this is where exciting things are going to happen. So let's go ahead and take all of this and let's write it as our equation. I equals PRT. So 5.80 equals 100 times 0.025 times T. So far, if I pull this back up, you can see they're very similar. The only difference is this $5.80 here. So again, I'm going to simplify by multiplying out. Multiply these two things, I get 2.5t. I'm going to divide both sides. 5.80 over 2.5 equals 2.5t over 2.5, just like I did before. And now is where things get exciting. I don't personally know what 5.8 over 2.5 is. So let me go ahead and get my handy dandy calculator out. 5.8 divided by 2.5 equals 2.32. So in other words, T equals 2.32 years. Okay, that's lovely. That's fine. That is an exact answer. That is absolutely true. But is it useful? So if I ask you, if I say, so what is 0.32 of a year? You could say, well, it's like a third maybe, and a third of a year is like maybe 4 months, but maybe, not sure if it's more than 4 months, less than 4 months. A lot of people would have to sit down and think about that. So this answer, although it's precise and it is correct, it may not be as useful. It may be more useful to say something like, well, it'll take between 2 and 3 years. A little bit longer than 2 years, not quite 3 years. And so what we're going to talk about on the next page is, how do we answer this? Woohoo! So, believe it or not, this problem might ask for different answers depending on how you are being asked around. Note that the exact answer, oh my goodness, almost as if I knew what was going to happen. Wow. That's amazing. I must have been psychic, huh? T equals 2.32 doesn't change, only the way we interpret that answer. If you are asked to round to the nearest year, your answer would be, okay, so if T equals 2.32 years, that's the number of years right there. So our rounding determinator is going to be the 3. And 3 is part of the rounding down. So we've got 3. So 3 means to round down. So we're going to go from 2.32. We're going to say that's approximately 2 years. Okay? Because it's closer to 2 years than it is to 3. So it's going to take about 2 years. Even though we know, is 2 years enough? No, 2 years is not enough to make that much interest, but 2 years is a place to start. Next up, if you are asked to round to 1 decimal place or the nearest tenth, your answer would be, okay, again, we've got 2.32, but we want to look for the tenths, right? So if that's where we want to round to, the number we're going to look to is the 2. And again, that's small, right? So 2 means to round down. So I get 2.32 is approximately 2.3 years. Now, I think personally, even though this is a less satisfying answer, a lot of people would be like, oh, 2.3 years, it sounds like a robot, but this gives you a lot more information than just 2 years. So there are going to be some settings, like if you were talking to someone who doesn't understand math or is maybe very young or isn't really that engaged with the question, they just want a nice round number, you would say 2 years. If you're talking with someone who wants more information or understands more about the situation, you might round it to 2.3 years. So it depends on the setting. So all of that was mathematical rounding. Mathematical rounding is a thing. This is the rule. This is how we do it in math. But the truth is applications, or i.e. word problems, require you to be more careful about how you're going to answer these. So we're going to consider, and you'll notice I've written this all out carefully so that you don't have to worry about my handwriting getting in the way. So let's consider the same problem again with some additional wording and context. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, to keep us from getting a little too far ahead, I'm going to do this. So I have $100. I'd like to invest at 2.5% annual simple interest. So it sounds familiar. How many years will it take me to earn at least $5.80 interest? And notice the really important words. They're very small, at least. So in other words, I need $5.80 in interest. And I know that after 2 years from the very first problem, I'm not going to have $5.80. Right? It's going to take me 2.32 years. So 2 years isn't long enough. So what are we going to do? Okay, so we know the answer. We worked it out on the previous paper. So answer is t equals 2.32. So what are we going to do? If we look at our first answer above, t equals 2, we realize that it doesn't quite answer the problem. After 2 years, the interest earned is only $5, right? So let's look at the formula. The interest earned, which is PRT, is 100 times 0.025, remember that's the R, times 2, 2 years is only $5. Which is a lot less than $5.80, right? So $5 is, and that's a less than sign, is $5 is less than $5.80. So what do we do? So given this, t equals 2 isn't a good answer to this problem with those words at least. Even though 2.32 rounds to 2 using mathematical rounding, we need to round up to 3 years to earn at least $5.80. So here, if I do the problem again and I say, what happens if I plug in 3 years? 3 years, we're going to get $7.50. So if I want to go to how many years will it take me to earn at least $5.80? 2 years? Not big enough. 3 years? Big enough. So my answer is going to be, at the end of 3 years, we have earned $7.50 in interest, which is at least $5.80. So we're going to answer 3 years. So we're going to choose to round up because of the language, even though mathematically we should round down. And it may be that you want to pause the video right now and go ask questions. Find me, find a tutor. Talk about this, because this might be a brand new concept that you would choose a different kind of rounding. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's continue on because there are more considerations. But we're almost through. Let's consider one more variation. I have $100 I'd like to invest at 2.5% annual simple interest. Again, same problem. How long will it take me to earn at least $5.80 interest? Okay, like what we just did. So we already solved it, so why are we solving it again? The answer is round to the nearest month. So this time I want to round to the nearest month. So this is a different problem. So remember that as before, we solved this. Remember, we solved it on the second page, and we got t equals 2.32, and I'll remind you that's in years. Okay, so now how do we get to months? So this is what we do. In this case, we're being asked for months, not years, even though t is given in years. To answer this problem, we need to know that there are 12 months in a year. So to answer a problem like this, we have to know how months and years are related. Okay, 12 months is 1 year. The whole number 2, so out of the 2.32, so this 2 right here tells us how many whole years. And the decimal part, the decimal part is this part right here, the 0.32, tells us what piece of a year is still left after that. So it's 2 years and then this little piece of a year. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ignore the 2. So take the 2 out and just look at the decimal. So I now have 0.32. Now I'm going to do something fancy with it. I'm going to multiply this number times the number of months in a year. 0.32 times 12. If I had asked for weeks, we'd be multiplying times 52 weeks in a year. If I had asked for days, we'd be multiplying times 365 days in a year. So 12 is what we're doing because it's 12 months in a year. So if you multiply 0.32 times 12, we get 3.84 months. Okay, which kind of makes sense. Remember, we were talking in the beginning, and I said, what is 0.32? It's like a third of a year. So that's like 3 or 4 months, right? So we're finding out, yeah, it's almost 4 months, not quite. Since this problem asks for at least 580, so we need to get there at least, that tells us we have to round up. So we're going to round from 2 years, 3.84 months. We're going to round that to 2 years, 4 months. Do you see that? We rounded up. We rounded from 3.84 up to 4 months, the whole next whole month up, because we want to earn at least that much. The longer you keep a loan going, the more interest is accrued or earned, depending on your perspective. Okay, again, you may want to pause the video right now. This is a lot. I've just given you a lot of information. So you may want to pause it right here and say, okay, I got to go get some help. You're always welcome to ask me or ask tutors, say, hey, can we do some more practice with this? And we're happy, thrilled to be able to come up with new problems so you can practice this. Okay, one more example. What if the previous problem had asked us to round to the nearest week? Okay, so remember, same problem, so our answer is t equals 2.32 years. Remember, that's in years. Since there are 52 weeks in a year, simply multiply for the same reason for what we did up here. Take the 0.32, the decimal, and multiply times 52. And I'm going to put a little star there. And I'm going to say some banks use 50. And you're going to say, what? What is even happening there? And the answer is, I believe the reason for this, I don't know for a fact, but it has become common for a lot of financial institutions to use 50 weeks in a year instead of 52, because honestly, the numbers are easier. Banking has existed for far longer than calculators or computers. And so I think what happened was they just said, let's just say it's 50 weeks in a year because that's an easier number to work with. But if you look in at some of the details, the fine print on many loans, they will tell you, is it 52 weeks in a year or 50 weeks in a year? You know, how many weeks exactly? They'll specify, so you'll have a chance to find out before you sign anything. So if we multiply 0.32 times 52, we get 16.64. And again, we round up. Why do we round up? Well, in this case, we have to round up. 16.64 would round up anyway, right? So if we're going to round to the next whole week, we would round to 17 because 6 is one of the rounding up numbers, but also because, again, we had this rule that we're looking to earn at least. And so since this is the minimum amount, if we round down, we'll be under that amount. So we got it. If it says we want at least that much money, we're going to have to go longer. So I'm going to round up mathematically and using the word problem and get to 2 years, 17 weeks. Oh my goodness, you have now made it through one of, I think, the hardest topics there is, word problems rounding. So again, take a break. This is almost 30 minutes of solid math. You did it. You made it. Woohoo! Kiss your brain, then go outside, look at something green, get some hydration, you know? Do some art, dance, walk, sing, whatever it is. If you do math for fun, do more math. Go for it. But know that you're awesome and amazing. And if you have questions, and I'd be surprised, honestly, if you didn't, so please continue to ask questions. You can ask our friend Blue Dinosaur. You can ask me. You can ask the tutors. But, you know, don't stop asking. Don't stop doing math. Know that you're awesome. Math on and woohoo.